So welcome to the KBB Review podcast. I'm Andy Davies, and we are live at the InstallerSHOW 2025. There we go. Thank you very much. Well, I'm going to edit that one into all the others. This is the third and final live episode we're recording here at the show, and we're finishing with a topic that I think every single KBB showroom and indeed installation business has in their 2025 head, and that's what the hell should I be doing with social media? Massive topic, of course. So in particular today, we're looking at small to medium-sized showrooms and businesses that don't have social media teams and instead are trying to fit it into the rest of their very, very busy days. So if you're time poor and you'll have limited resources, this is the episode for you. So what works and what doesn't? Where should you be spending your limited time? And how do you even know it's working at all? That's what we're talking about today. So we have some top experts. That's you. Don't look at me like that. That's you. We have some top experts from the frontline to talk it through. We have Blume from Krantz Designs. Hello, Kira.
Hello.
Hello. We have Adam Jones from Cwtch. That's my Welsh.
You've got it right.
Thank you.
Done well.
I am called Davis. It should be in there somewhere. And we have Hayley Simmons from KBB Marketing. Hello, Hayley.
Hello.
Right, let's start quickly. Let's just go down the line and get you to do the 10-second intro of yourselves and the business that you do. Kira, let's start with you.
I'm Blume. I'm the showroom manager at Krantz Designs. We're in the Midlands. We're a luxury, bespoke, handcrafted kitchen company. Manufacture everything in-house. And, that's me.
Hayley?
I'm Hayley Simmons. I'm a freelance marketing and product consultant. So I've been in the industry for about 16 years. Most of that time was spent at Magnet, and I've been freelance for the last 3 years working with national brands on strategy and research, but also working with small independents in quite a hands-on way.
Adam?
And I'm Adam. I work at a company called Cwtch, and we're based in the heart of Pembrokeshire in West Wales, and we're just a small independent business based on there.
Brilliant. So, Kira and Adam, for context here, just give us an idea of what your kind of social media following size scale is. Kira?
So we actually have just over 141,000 followers. So large following, but again, we are just an independent business in Lincoln, one showroom in Lincoln, Belgate, and we do all of our social media in-house.
Yes, I mean, we should emphasise that you're also designing kitchens.
Yes, yeah. So I'm showroom manager, but I've just recently moved out of designing. So I work really closely with our design team. So basically dealing with all the new inquiries, social media and design team. So kind of do everything in-house.
Adam, What about you?
So our Facebook following's just above 2,000, and our Instagram is about 1,100. But same as Kira, I'm a business manager, so my role isn't full-time marketing. I'm also looking at our operations and our finance management. So
A bit of everything, yeah. So, look, Hayley, this is pretty typical. Well, you're not necessarily typical, but this is exactly the kind of picture we're talking about here for small independents, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I would say what's astonishing about Kira's business following is it's bigger than some of the national retailers. You're probably in the top 0.1% of kitchen retailers, and if you look at your account and the content, it's easy to see why you've done well. But more typically, you see businesses that are operating in a typical geographic area, and 500 followers, it could be typical, 1,000, 2,000. There are some that stand out, and they've done well with viral content, but it's getting harder and harder to go viral.
Well, we're going to get into the details of that, I think, because you can get just as much out of 2,000 followers as you can from 140,000 followers. So we'll get to that in a minute. But I think what I want to do first is just answer a question I get all the time, but I don't know anything. This will lead all the other bits that follow it, I think. And that is, which platforms do you actually use? Because there's quite a few of them. You're limited time, limited resource. Which do you use and why?
So Instagram is the main one we use. So that's our biggest following on Instagram. But I would say even quite recently, apps like TikTok, Pinterest, we've only just kind of slowly gone into. So I think we've only got maybe 3,000 followers on both of those platforms. And Instagram obviously is very image based, and our photography and videography is so important in our industry, and it is what sells the product at the end of the day. And we really heavily invest in that to make that so special, to really kind of showcase what we can offer. And we do think that maybe in 6 months' time it might be a different question, because obviously clients come to us all the time. You probably get the same with They all have Pinterest boards. Everyone kind of says we found this on Pinterest, and we really want to put our time and effort into that as well, because we don't want to put all our eggs in one basket with Instagram, but I would say predominantly Instagram at the moment.
So what about you, Adam? Because it is a time and resource-based thing. There's only so much you can do, so you want to concentrate on the platforms that get the return.
What I generally say to people is, well, it depends. It really depends on what the right strategy is for your particular business. So we focus a lot on Facebook because Facebook is the right fit for our particular demographic where we're based. And what we found is the content that we put out on Facebook is generally more effective at driving results for us, as in, people coming into the showroom and ultimately, buying kitchens from us. But that's not to say that, I'm sure for a company like Kira, I don't want to speak for Kira, but, that sort of market, and she's probably got a broader service area. Instagram's very effective with those sort of tools that it has within the platform there. You can essentially have a mini showroom. With your highlights, you can talk about all of the particular services that you might offer in different product ranges. And with that high quality photography, you don't really need so much in a showroom because you can broadcast to that quite easily on social media.
I mean, this is a very basic question, Hayley, isn't it? But this comes down to the root of time and resource, doesn't it? If you try and cover every platform, you're just going to dilute each one, aren't you?
Well, that's it. And also with the Meta platform, so you can be posting on Instagram and you link your Facebook account, so you can do both at the same time. I think Facebook has a slightly older demographic compared to Instagram. TikTok again is even younger. But
you were looking at me when you said that.
But what I would say is if you're going to focus on one, it would be Instagram, cross-post onto Facebook. If you're producing lots of video content and you're doing well on Instagram, then it makes sense to add TikTok into the mix, but use the same content, treat it all as one. Some of the scheduling tools you use you can manage it all and post out to each one all at the same time. So yeah, I think Instagram probably would be the number one.
But it's the most impact for the most time, and that's kind of what the biggest problem I think people have. So right, Kira, let's get into some details here. You've got 140,000 followers. You're a small showroom in the Midlands. How the hell have you done that? What content do you use?
Great
what works
question.
best?
Yeah.
What's the recipe here? What's the secret sauce?
So as Hayley just mentioned, obviously they're all linked. So we do use Meta Business to schedule everything. So we do all of our Instagram posts will go onto Facebook. But like you mentioned, then when the video content does well, that makes sense to post it on TikTok. And to have all of that content, we just do really try and put it everywhere. Obviously, our imagery is so important, but we have found that video is just a game changer. And I think the reels seem to get a lot more engagement straight away. And I don't know if it normally does just seem organic.
It is, in terms of reach, reels are really the only way to get organic reach. If you're posting static images currently on Instagram, they only really get seen by your followers, and it's actually only a percentage of your followers. If nobody likes or interacts with that post straight away once it's posted, then the algorithm suppresses the content. Whereas it's different with videos. You can use audio that's trending, which means it gets shown to more people. But what we need to remember, keep it in context, is when a piece of content goes viral, it's not going viral in your local area. It's going viral internationally. So whilst it's great from a credibility standpoint, it looks great if you've got a brand with a large following, you're not necessarily reaching your target audience. So for me, advising a small business that wants to either sort of get going again with social media or even just up their game, going viral is great, but it wouldn't be the aim.
So videos really big, but videos of what though?
Yeah, so
Why are your videos working more than others? What are you actually doing?
So we do a mixture. So obviously, on our shoot days, we have a photographer and a videographer there. So we'll try and get as much content as possible on those days of all the furniture. I think a big part of it is to have people in the videos and to see the product being used. You could get so much from a photo, but what we did recently at one of our shoots was have a chef cooking in the kitchen, and I think that just goes such a long way. And for people to see that, and even in our showroom, we do client events where we have a videographer, and I think to see the kitchen being like heavily used is a massive part of our marketing to show that it is built for the longevity and is such an important part of it.
So are you focusing on, is it purely aesthetics, you know what I mean, or are you focusing on detail of that kitchen? How are you explaining the kitchen? if indeed you are doing that, or is it just literally fly through the kitchen?
It's kind of a bit of both. So we will normally have kind of like the opening of doors. There's so many elements within our joinery that's so kind of specific. So things like the soft close and the usability of the product, we just really want to show the ease of that. So things like walking through secret doors or all the bespoke internals that we do. So kind of opening all of those cabinets. But then at the same time, we do staff videos, so like meet the team and meet our managing directors, and there's so many behind the scenes that we also like to portray. So it's not just the finished product, but I think a massive part is the workshop and to see the product being made, and even that side of things I think shows the kind of care and attention that goes into the product, which again I think just kind of makes us stand out slightly. Exactly, yeah.
Really important. I mean, weirdly, we had a conversation a while ago about giving an award out for the best kitchen door opener, because everybody's reels seems to be someone walking through a kitchen, opening the doors and closing it. There's definitely a technique for opening a door and pointing. Adam, have you done opening door and pointing videos?
Yeah, we've done
What
many
works
of them.
best for you?
Well, I like to remember this figure. There was some research done by the IPA, who is the Institute of Practitioners in Advertising, and they were trying to work out of a sort of marketing spend, what's the correct allocation of that budget in order to get them optimum effectiveness out of it. And what they find was it was a 60-40 split, 60 in favour of brand building content and then 40% in sales activation. So what they found was if you're just doing sales activated content, which is essentially things like buy now, get people through the door and drive those leads, you get these big spikes in activity, but then huge declines as well. You haven't sort of built a brand for people to stick around. So when you inject that brand spend into the mix, you kind of get this ladder, this step, because you're building an audience and a fan base that also then makes your sales activations more important. So when we think about that and bring that back into our showroom, we do a mix of, we do a lot of brand building content because that sort of allocation of spend varies on context. But we do a lot of content, things like behind the scenes. We do a lot of project showcase type content. And we've also just launched a YouTube series, which is long format content, which really builds on our brand values and our pillars that we are trying to communicate to people.
So, Hayley, how much of this is product-based? How much of it is brand-based, as Adam's talking about? Is there a danger sometimes that you've seen somebody make a video that's gone really well, so you just try and do your version of it, and therefore everyone ends up with a similar kind of content?
There are definitely gimmicks and trends on social media, and I think some of them you're right to tap into, others not. I think it depends where you are on that sort of social media journey, but the point that Adam just made about brand building versus sort of performance marketing is it's a really well-known piece of research that you just mentioned, actually, and I think it's important to think about that when you're thinking about social media. So a lot of retailers I speak to, they will say, well, we've tried social media, but we don't get any leads from it, expecting a post to go out and a lead to come back. But actually, social media has a role to play at various stages of a customer journey. So one is brand awareness and video that does well and reaches a lot of people organically. You're building awareness, that's great. There are other ways to do that, online and offline. But once a potential customer's discovered you, they don't stop scrolling on social media. They also use it throughout the buying process. They use it to discover brands, they use it to narrow down, shortlist them, they use it to research products. And it's a blessing and a curse, really, because what we have now is we've got consumers who are more informed than ever before. Consumers are becoming designers, which makes it hard to sell design because they're coming in with a Pinterest board full of images, but they're also more overwhelmed as well. So even after buying, right up until even after the kitchen's been fitted, they're still looking at kitchens online. It's crazy. So the point I'm trying to make in a very long-winded way is it does different things at different stages of the customer journey, and awareness is only one of them. It's also a digital storefront. It's a digital brochure that's updated, and it could also be a virtual showroom.
A part of this is it's brilliant, but it's also the problem is it can appear just incredibly overwhelming. It's like I just don't know where to start with it. I don't feel if I'm not doing it, I might as well not bother at all because I can't put as much science behind it as you guys are. I think that's part of the problem that small showrooms tend to have. They just think, oh my God, unless I've worked out my brand marketing split of my whatever it is, and all they really want to do is put some pictures of a nice kitchen up. What works best? What are the sort of 1, 2, 3 guides for content, if you like, that anyone can follow?
A really great, simple way of framing it is just prioritizing storytelling over selling. Emotional connection builds authenticity and trust a lot quicker than promotional stuff. So if you're trying to make social media work, don't just post things like your brochures from the different suppliers that you work with. Tell people about what makes you different. Tell them about your showroom and how the solution that you approach the projects with is different to someone else's and why they should buy from you as opposed to another showroom.
A lot of what we're talking about here is time, and for people where social media isn't 100% of their job, and in fact it's only practically quite a small part of their job, managing the time, particularly for you, Kira, because you're doing so much of it, managing that time amongst all the other things you're doing must be really difficult. So how do you even start? Like, do you have a schedule? Do you have a timetable of your day? How does it work?
Yeah, so we do the support of Meta Business to schedule everything is a massive part of it. So as long as we keep on top of that, it really helps, obviously, with the time management. There's probably about 4 of us in the company that share the social media, which I predominantly kind of do the posting. But it is one of those where, to be kind of completely honest, that doing it all in-house with the following that we have can be a struggle, and it is one of those where we know it needs to be a priority, and it sometimes becomes kind of second nature to, but obviously wanted to keep clients kind of a priority as well. But I think just kind of sharing it between a few of us and at least having like the beginning of a day set out to ensure that we are kind of caught up with scheduling is kind of how we go from it.
So how do you talk us through your plan then? Do you sit down and go, for the next month, we're going to do this, 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 and this. We've got these shoots coming up. We've got these projects coming up, and we'll get this out of it. Do you sit there on a Monday and go, what we're going to do today? And then Tuesday you do the same thing?
Yeah, so
how much of it is planned a month in advance? How much of it is planned today? How much are you making it up as you go along?
Yeah, so scheduling, kind of photo and video scheduling is, I guess, kind of, I would say weekly almost, whereas the shoot days is something that we really invest a lot of time in. So the shoot days is probably the most kind of thought through process. So we will kind of book over the next year or so of shoot days, obviously knowing when projects are finished, and getting new content is such a massive thing for us because trying to post daily and obviously running out of content can sometimes be such an issue, and we try and really maximize those days to have a clear plan. Sometimes they'll take, even just for a kitchen, they'll take minimum of a day, so we often have multiple day shoots, and to obviously manage that with a photographer and a videographer we just need to make the most of it, really.
So how much content would you wring out of one kitchen?
Yeah, so one kitchen shoot would probably normally be around like 30 to 40 photos. We've recently just shot 3 full house projects where we would get kind of over 100 photos and say like 20 plus videos from each project. So obviously the more varied rooms and furniture there is, the more we can get from it. But then at the same time, that's where it kind of gets more bespoke, and it's where we try and then prioritise the kitchen projects, obviously, that target more of our audience.
When you're there in that kitchen and the shoot state, are you? How much have you planned that ahead of what content you're going to get? How much are you making it up? How much are you thinking, I've got to get 20 out of this, I've got to get...
Yeah, so
how much you plan the shoot?
It's a bit of a collaboration with the photographer and the videographer, and it also depends on the design and how bespoke the internals are. It really does vary per project, but it's always the designer that goes on the shoot day, so they know the design inside and out, and we will have a good idea of kind of what parts we need to focus on and to get showcase almost the elements that we might have not photographed before, because I think it's good to show clients CGIs of designs of kind of suggestions of what they're wanting, but to show real life situations and then to back that up with a video of the real thing.
It's a real birthday activity that then feeds it. What about you, Adam? How much are you planning? How do you manage your time? Do you make it up on a Monday morning, or do you know what you're doing in September?
Yeah, well, not really, but I think good diary management is really essential to, making sure it gets done at all. I think especially when you're in a small business and you've got many hats to wear, if you're not booking out that time to focus, a little bit on social media, then it's quite easy for it to get forgotten about. But there's some other tips that I can give you to kind of make it easier as well. We have sort of evergreen content planned that we know that we can go out and create. So that removes the think work of oh, what can I create this week, or what can I go out and grab? So we know that our project showcases is one piece of evergreen content that we can always go out and do. And then we know, well, we can document our behind the scenes content, and that's another piece of evergreen content that we've got. So as long as we know when those things are happening, we can go out and shoot them. And then some other advice is, like what Kira was saying, we can absolutely get probably between 10 and 20 different pieces of content from one kitchen shoot. So by going in there and knowing all the different things you can grab, you've got your photo galleries, and you can do them on landscape and portrait for different applications of social media, different styles of Instagram reels. So you've got your POV walkthroughs, your render to reality reveals, the kitchen walkthrough, and you could do a long one and a short one. You can get really creative with all the different pieces of content you can grab from one shoot. And then that can essentially give you a month's worth of content from 1 hour or an hour or two of being in a client's house.
I mean, this must be, I'm guessing, Hayley, when people come to you, the first thing they must say is, I just haven't got time to do this.
That's right. And I think the advice about scheduling time to create content in batches is a really good one. And the point about repurposing content to use in different ways, whether you might post that as a carousel, you might post it as a reel or as a still image, and trying to capture when you do a photo shoot, trying to capture the wide angles, like I said, get the portrait, the landscape, but also the details. You could do one post just on one feature of the kitchen, the handle and the door. A mix of close-ups and wide angles works really well. Now, a lot of showrooms are not actually producing their own video content. A lot of them actually don't get professional photography at all. So I would say, talking about the basics, I would say to showrooms that are struggling with having enough content, running out of content is a big challenge for many retailers, is get some professional photography done and try and get the most out of that photo shoot that you can. But even if you're struggling, suppliers have photography. They give you access to image banks, so you can use that to fill up that content bank. You can post customer reviews, make nice graphics. There's a really great graphic design software called Canva, which is really easy to use. You can produce graphics with quotes from the designer. There's all sorts you can do to make sure that you're posting regularly. You might not get lots of reach, but I think we need to remember that whilst customers will enjoy great content, and looking at your two accounts, like, you can see why the content does well. The quality of the video production on your Instagram grid is beautiful. But I think the main thing to think about is customers expect you to have some presence on social media. They don't expect you to have a large following, but the recency, showing that you're active on there, builds trust and credibility. So just posting regularly is the first step. Well,
plus the actual business that you're in creates very beautiful things. It's not like you're trying to flog socks or something. You're vlogging very beautiful, aspirational things, and they do, you'd be a fool to not take nice photos of it. But look, you mentioned Canva there, and I want to kind of dip into what tools you can use to help you with this time and resource element of it. There's lots of tools available to you to speed up, for scheduling, that kind of thing. So what are the main things that you use, Kira, to actually get this stuff done?
Yeah, so like we mentioned, Meta Business Suite being a massive one. We do kind of, I guess we haven't used Canva for quite a while, but that is something like posting reviews. That I think stories on Instagram is a big thing with Canva, and even if it's not kind of posted on the grid, but to have those kind of more engaging slides on your story makes a massive difference. But I would even say like Cwtch. So a big thing that we really try and do is that I think also keeping the social media in-house really helps with that. It comes from like the voice of a designer, but we do use Cwtch to kind of aid that. Another massive thing, that there's a book called They Ask You Answer by Marcus Sheridan, and it focuses on inbound marketing and basically answering questions that the clients have. And that has been a massive tool for us that has really helped to have that content constantly available. So we've basically got a blog post answering every question that any client has ever asked us, and to then have that to continue to use on our Instagram posts and kind of relay it in different ways. But then also the aid that AI helps to write those blog posts. Like, there's so much out there to help. So that helps with time management.
It's going to sound creepy, and I promise it's not meant to, but what apps have you got on your phone?
So ChatGPT, I have Canva. They're probably the main ones, to be honest. I think between the few of us that kind of do the social media, there's probably multiple others, but it's also one of those where before we really spent a lot of time on the videos and having a videography on every shoot, we would always just do like iPhone videos. So even that, with then using Instagram or TikTok or any kind of video editing apps, makes a massive difference. And again, you don't have that added expense of a videographer, but you can still make such beautiful videos just from your iPhone.
Again, Adam, I sound like I'm an investigating officer here, but what apps have you got on your phone?
Well, all the same as Kira, really. But I think there's certainly a good, better, best approach for what tools you use to create content, given what budget you have. There's nothing wrong with an iPhone and a Meta Business Suite. You know, iPhones are so good now, the cameras, that it's almost as good as a professional camera. Not quite. If there's any photographers, don't shoot me down. But that's, you know, so we use a combination of both. You know, there's nothing wrong with using an iPhone, especially for that authenticity piece. It does tend to stop people in the scroll when they can see something authentic and not overly polished. So I wouldn't sort of worry about having to have a huge budget and investing in loads of tools to be able to gather content. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with an iPhone. But obviously, if you have got more budget and you can invest in that professional photography and add in that production value, it's only going to add value and, I guess, tell your brand story better, because it'll communicate the quality of the goods that you're offering.
And your scheduling and things like that, time management, have you got any particular tools that you use for that?
We used Meta Business Suite for the longest time, but we recently also just started using later.com. And, you know, the extra functionality that gives us is just scheduling for more social media platforms. So when we were really focused on Facebook and Instagram before, this now also allows us to schedule in TikTok and Pinterest and LinkedIn as well. But we also use a bit of ChatGPT. That reduces time in terms of thinking about what copy. But what I would say is just make sure you really give it good context. AI is really good at giving you content, but really poor at giving you context. So make sure you're telling it, you know, this is what's got into that room, and then just help me produce good sounding copy for it.
Is there an educative part of this, Hayley, do you think, when you're dealing with smaller showrooms who find social media difficult too, that there are tools available out there that can help you do this stuff if you learn how to use them properly?
Yeah, definitely. The scheduling tools are great. And as Adam said, if you're posting beyond Facebook and Instagram, then you'll need a third-party tool. Later.com, there's lots. I've used a few, and it often depends with who I'm working with, because generally I'm working with clients who just really struggle with social media, and I'm there to get them going, and then I hand it back. So I'm sort of working a different way, and the tool I use will depend on how comfortable they are with technology. So sometimes I will recommend a really basic, quite old-fashioned looking platform because the client's more comfortable with it. Yeah, AI is great. I think you've got to... it's great for generating ideas. It's great for editing copy, cutting it down. But you've got to remove some of the telltale signs. It's easy to those big dashes,
Dangerous M dash,
and the rocket emojis. But yeah, you made a good point about the blog posts. If you've got a blog post or even website copy and paste it into ChatGPT and say, make me 10 short posts from this content. Trying to repurpose whatever you have is one of the best ways to save time, I would say. So
social media has the word social in it, and obviously you talk a lot about what you can post, but interaction and engagement is a huge part of it. So Adam, how do you deal with interaction and engagement? When people are sort of interacting with you, do you respond? How do you manage that? How do you put time and resource behind it?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that we do. We try and engage with other people as much as possible. And the algorithms on Instagram actually reward you for this as well. So if you're interacting with people before you upload and after you upload, I think it will promote your content. I mean, I don't know the exact amount, something like 1.6 times more likely to be engaged with. So don't post and ghost, you know, don't just add content and then leave. Make sure you're interacting with other people as well. Some other things you can do is making sure you're adding prompts into your content. So, you know, engage with your audience, ask them questions. Do you think this kitchen design should have a wood floor or a tile floor? You know, and involve them in that design process and make it interactive.
But that could also suck an enormous amount of time out of your day, just engaging with people who are talking to you.
Well, you could be there designing a kitchen. This idea could come into your head. You can, you know, literally grab a photo on your phone, ask the question and post it within 2 minutes. So it doesn't have to take loads of time. You know, these are the kind of candid things that you can post on the fly. When we think about our content creation in our business, we try to have 80% of our content scheduled and then 20% we leave for that kind of authentic, spontaneous uploading. And you can't post too much on social media. I think the more you're interacting, the more you're engaging with people, the more of a reason you're giving people to stay tuned into
And
you.
how much do you interact with other people's accounts? How much are you saying, lovely kitchen, love that bathroom, or whatever it might be? How much are you going to them?
As often as we upload, to be honest. I think I know when our sort of content's going out, and I'm just aware of just interacting with other people. And that could be all of our different partners, different architects that we work with, construction companies, or even other local businesses. One of our key pillars for our brand strategy in our business is being really community driven and really community focused. And especially with this new YouTube series that we've launched, they're often businesses that aren't really related to the KBB industry, but we're just sort of commenting on things and adding commentary into the community.
You've got 140-odd thousand followers here, Kira. How do you interact? How do you have conversations with them, or do you? Because if you're talking to all of them, you're never going to do anything else.
Yeah, we do try and reply to everyone. So a massive part of our ethos and company is our commitment to good customer service, and we really do try and get back to people as quick as we can. I think a lot of, the interaction is people commenting on posts, asking about details of those photos, so like paint color and all of those sorts of things. But we do often get the inquiries come through our direct messages. So part of my role in the business as well is dealing with all new inquiries and kind of tracking our KPIs of how many inquiries we get each month. So we do find that it kind of works hand in hand with me also managing part of the social media. So we often just try and then kind of take people's details and then follow up with a phone call, or rather than keeping it all kind of on Instagram and have that conversation on Instagram in case it obviously ever gets lost, but redirecting people to our website and getting their details is, I think, the kind of go-to. But we do try our best to keep on top of all the messages and getting back to everyone.
So you talked about KPIs there, and one of the things with social, I think, is that you could just keep feeding the beast, and it just becomes an overwhelming thing. I'm going to come to you with Hayley on this, because this must be, again, one of the things you talk about. How do you actually know if it's working? How do you actually measure in any way? I know there's no answer to this, by the way, but how do you actually know if it's working? How many leads is a good lead? How do you know?
Well, I think just focusing on likes and follows is not enough to tell you whether it's working or not. And there's a few things. And obviously we're talking here about organic social media. We haven't touched upon paid advertising, but I would say this applies for both. So there's post interactions. So obviously that's likes, but it's also comments and are people saving your post? They might not be liking it. They might be saving it. There's website traffic from social media. So I would advise anybody with a website to be tracking where the traffic's come from. Is it coming from Google? Is it coming from one of the social media platforms? Another thing is I have seen when retailers are active on social media, whether that be paid or organic, their Google searches increase. So how many people are searching for your brand name on Google is another way. Obviously, that could be due to a number of different factors. But I would say think about the entire sort of marketing funnel. What's your reach? How many people are you reaching? Which is important when you're doing paid ads. How many impressions are your posts getting? But what are they then doing after they've been on your profile? Are they going to the website or are they calling you or messaging you? So I would say measure all of those things.
I mean, do you ask them when they come in the showroom, Adam? How did you find out about us? I mean, there must be a certain anecdotal element of it as well. I saw you on Insta. I've come in to see your showroom.
Yeah, we do a little bit of that, but oftentimes that's something that's quite difficult to attribute where they come from, because we do such a broad range of different, marketing and advertising activity. There's nothing to say that although they converted on the website, they didn't see our radio ad, our print ad, our social media content. They might have seen 7 bits of creative before they decided to make the conversion. And I'm quite, especially in a small business setting, no one wants death by PowerPoint or overanalyzing figures. So, we kind of just focus on the mix, really.
I mean, imagine with the size of following you have, Kira, analytics can be quite a tempting thing to spend all day looking at. 140,000 followers doesn't mean 140,000 customers. So how do you measure it?
Yeah, so we do. So when people inquire through the website, which we try and basically process all of our inquiries through that. So whether people ring or come into the showroom, the designers would always add that into our inquiry form on our website so we can track everything. So we would often either the client would say where they've found us from. So we do often get people tick that Instagram box or Google word of mouth, whatever the inquiries come from. And then I do try and get into that habit of when people come into the showroom to ask them how they found out about us. And I think it does work hand in hand with, part from social media, but then it could have been a recommendation, which then they found our Instagram. So I think it isn't kind of always purely Instagram, but I think it does give that validation, like we kind of spoke about earlier, having that following and that presence on Instagram. But we do find that it's kind of supports the leads that we then qualify. So I do also track what qualified leads from the inquiries that we get, and it's definitely nowhere near that 140,000 figure, but I think it is just the support of having that presence is what makes all the difference.
But the nature of the product you're selling is you don't need lots of leads to justify the time and expense of it, do you? You get one or two leads that convert, and it's more than pay for itself because you're selling expensive.
Exactly, yeah, especially being an independent business as well. And our one workshop, we can obviously only make so many kitchens per year. So we do still try and keep within that. And I think because of the bespokeness of our product, and we do want every project to be special, we don't want to go crazy with that, with having as many inquiries as possible, because then it wouldn't reflect what our ethos is about.
Well, look, again, we're scratching the surface of an enormous subject here today. I'm very aware of that. So I'm going to have to round it off with a very simple question, really. So I'm going to start with you, Adam, at the end here. So say I'm a small independent kitchen and bathroom showroom. What could I do? It's Thursday today. What can I do on Friday morning to make my social media more effective? What would be the one thing you would say?
The most effective thing I would say to that is to have a mindset shift away from creating content and just think more about documenting content, which is a very simple reframing to say, you know, you could be doing anything in your day and you can get your phone out and grab a story or take a picture of what you're up to at that moment in time. And that alone can unlock, you know, loads of content creation that you can get stuck into.
Kira, what do you think? One thing.
I think creating that kind of compelling story is what makes people believe in you. And I do think it really does go hand in hand with networking, but kind of agreeing what Adam said. And it is building that trust, really, because without then finding a really good photographer and videographer, which might not be possible at that stage, I think just building that kind of story of the company and putting that out there.
Yeah, don't underestimate the value of your own authenticity is a big part of it. So what do you think, Hayley? One thing they could do tomorrow morning?
I was going to say share the people behind the business, but I would say if they're struggling in a bit of a rut, not posting frequently, have a content session, get all the content you can from all sources and look at ways that you can repurpose it. And I have sort of 4 Ps that I think about, which is product, which you can talk about a product, you can talk about the people, you can talk about the process, and you've got the proof. So case studies and testimonials, but I really love the advice of documenting rather than creating. I think that's a great tip. Yeah.
All right, well, look, brilliant. The clock's beating us, I think. This is a huge subject, like I say, but it can be very daunting if you're trying to manage it as part of your everyday life. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for coming along today. Thank you, Kira, Hayley, and Adam.